Hello, all you happy people. Welcome to another episode of the Dan Wickline Show until I come up with a better name. Yeah, I'm kind of carrying over the name from my show on The Experience. And like I said, because it doesn't feel like Pop Go the Writer without a co-host. But I guess technically my co-host is Artemis, who has been gone a year now. But still miss her. Baby girl. Okay, guys. Today's show going to be a little different. Got some other stuff to talk about. We've just been talking about Superman a lot lately. And there's nothing wrong with that. Superman was awesome. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Actually, I was just watching. I haven't bought it on video on demand yet. I probably won't. But I will buy it on Blu-ray because I still prefer physical media. I like to own these things so that if I ever want to watch it and, the cable's out or suddenly, it's not available, I got it. So, hey, Ed, good to see you. So I will pick it up on Blu-ray when it comes out or 4K. But what I was watching was some people that do reactions. They usually do TV show reactions, but it's just two guys, and they sit in this faux movie theater, and their names are like Jay and Adam. And Jay's on the left, Adam's on the right. And they watch, and they get emotional. They really love this stuff, and they're big Superman fans, and they hadn't seen it in the theater, so they bought it. They were looking forward to it, and they started watching it, and we just got to the point in their rewatch or their watch of Superman turning himself in and Lois going to the Justice Gang. And there are a few moments in that movie that I absolutely love. Just love. And one of them is the discussion between Lois and Guy Gardner about the hypno glasses and stuff, and him telling him, then he's Clark Kent. And she's like, yes, I do, but why does he tell everybody? Hey, Mr. Nope. And my favorite line is when Guy Gardner says, in all seriousness, he doesn't tell everybody, he just tells us because we are of the cloth. And he does this swipe down with his hands, like that he's a member of the clergy because he's a superhero of the cloth. And I'm like, that is just one of the best lines. This is a movie that I will probably watch multiple times when I get it on disc, because I know there's stuff I missed, scenes I missed, moments I missed. And it's one of those that I think I will enjoy watching over and over again. There are a lot of movies come out, and I like them. I think they're good movies. But I don't know if I want to watch them again. I have never rewatched Infinity War or Endgame. And I've watched clips. I've watched the scene of Captain America first picking up the hammer, or everybody coming back. Those are awesome. But there's so much emotion in that movie, that it's tough to sit down and rewatch the beginning of it. And, so it just, when I'm sitting down and I feel like I want to watch something, what I tend to do is go for more movies that are self-contained and have an upbeat ending. Hey, Anthony, good to see you. So I'll watch stuff like the first Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, the Batman. Absolutely love the Batman. First Iron Man, first Captain America. Winter Soldier will also get a rewatch, but those are the ones I want to watch again and again and again. Thunderbolts may end up being one of those. Thunderbolts is one that I feel I could watch multiple times. So Yeah. Let's see. Anthony says, when you hear godlike directors like Scorsese, Coppola saying super movies are not cinema and movie theaters should kick them out of the theater, what are your thoughts? God, I feel bad for saying this, but it feels to me a bit like not knowing when it's time to go home from the party. Coppola just did that big Metropolis movie or whatever it was called, and it bombed. Scorsese, stuff like that. Their era of movie telling has moved on. The audience has moved on. So I don't think it's so much them knocking on the movies that are coming out. It's that they think the movies that have come out have changed the audience to the point where they won't sit through a movie like a Godfather, like a Scorsese film. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think Kevin Feige sat down and said, let's make a movie that's going to change the way people are go to the movies. I think he sat down and made a movie that he thought would connect with today's audience, and tell the story he wanted to tell, and that's what they did, and it did. He's having a problem now connecting with the audience because that audience has changed again. We're over 15 years, almost 20 years, like 17 right now, since Iron Man 1. That audience has changed. The kids going to the theaters now on the weekends and after school some of them weren't even born yet when Iron Man came out. Others, were still toddlers. And the people who were going to the movies and standing in line to see these things, they're having kids of their own now. So it's been a big change, and they've got to get used to that. So I think it's just a matter of the world has changed, and Scorsese and Coppola, I think they still want to make the movies that they used to make, but that audience isn't the same anymore. And yeah, there's still people out there who want to see those, but it's not the size of the audience that they used to have. So, and it's easier to blame the popular thing. It's like in the 90s and stuff when music was changing again, and grunge became the big thing, and people were like, "Oh, we should get rid of grunge is horrible. Nirvana's not a real band. Pearl Jam's not a real band." It was more because the audience had changed, not because these bands just hit what those audiences wanted to hear. So superhero movies were for a long time what these audiences wanted to see. Now it's harder to judge. A lot of them want to see horror movies. That's why you see stuff like Sinners and Weapons and Smile. These little out of the nowhere horror movies are doing well. And at the same time, you've got movies like Superman and Fantastic Four, which are hitting well with the critics, and they're hitting well with audience scores, but they're not making the big box office. And when you look at the box office numbers, you've got to keep in mind that the world is very different than it used to be. I keep seeing, and I talked about this a little last week, so I don't want to go into it too deep here, but you see a lot of people talking about, Man of Steel made more money than Superman. Well, when you look at international, yes. When you look at domestic, no. And they'll tell you, well, you got to factor in inflation. And when they do that, though, you notice no one ever never factors the inflation in on the budget, just on the amount of money made. Yeah, that's always kind of an interesting thing. The fact that Man of Steel was made for 225 million, Superman was made for 225 million, 12 years apart tells me that it costs less to make Superman. Even though it was the same amount, inflation has pushed everything up. So if they had both been made in 2013, Superman would have cost less to make. And therefore, if it did similar numbers, ticket sales, whatever, it would probably have been profitable faster. And you look at the international market, go to Box Office Mojo, go to the international thing and scroll down, or global, and scroll down to the Pacific Asian area. You'll see that neither Russia nor China and about 4 other countries are not listed under Superman, where they are listed under Man of Steel. And those countries total like 70, 80, 90 million dollars, which is pretty close to what the difference is between the two. So, when 67 million is the take for Man of Steel in China, and Superman opens for 8 million, it's less about the movie quality and it's more about the political turmoil between the two countries, and the change in market for the Asian markets. So, all right, let me see, catch up with. And it's weird that Scorsese would attack superhero movies when he started his career in genre films. Remember Boxcar Bertha? Yeah, like I said, I think he's attacking what's popular because his movies are no longer what draw people in. And you know what? The guy's been around for so long, made so many good movies. Let him bitch about it. Doesn't validate his argument, but he's allowed to have it. What makes me upset, Anthony says, what makes me upset when they make these qualifying statements when they're never watched these movies? Yeah, that's true. Tarantino talks about, I don't remember what it was. It was some movie that he said he had never watched. Oh, the Dune movies. He had never watched the Dune movie, or he didn't watch Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies because he had already seen David Lynch's, and that's all he needed. And it's like, okay, you can stop talking then because you haven't seen it, so you can't critique the new Dune movies. I've seen them both. I've seen the 2 new Dune movies. I saw the old Dune movie. I saw the sci-fi version of it. And I saw the HBO Max series. So I have taken in all of the Dune options. I've even got the books on audio, and I'm listening to them. And what it tells me is I absolutely love the new films. I find them to be easier to digest than David Lynch's, because Lynch tried to jam a lot into 2 hours, where Dennis is taking like 5 hours to tell the same story. I think that's a better call. But when David Lynch did the film, there was no way studios were going to give him that, to give him 2 movies, So, nothing against David Lynch's, but for me, which kind of stayed away from Dune for a long time because it seemed so inaccessible, after watching the new movies, I love it. Absolutely into it. Anthony says, perfect example of this is the music, and Mick Jagger said rock and roll is dead. This was before bands like Whitesnake, Scorpions came out. Yeah. Basically, when your music, your movies, your scripts kind of fall out of favor, then I can see you going, oh, it's all dead. Because it's hard to accept that you're not clicking with the current audiences. So, okay. Ed says, yes, thank you for mentioning the budget when talking about inflation. Yeah, absolutely. There's an unbalance there. It's kind of like in politics and everything else nowadays. People cherry pick facts to feed their narrative, and the movies are like that. So, all right, I don't want to spend too much time on Superman, but I did absolutely enjoy watching these two guys watch it for the first time. I cannot wait till it comes out on HBO Max, or I think September 23rd. It's going to be on digital or on disc, and I plan on having it that day. I will pre-order. Um, so what's going on? I am still working on Obsidian Moon. Again, if you haven't signed up for the mailing list, please go to danwickline.com. It's the first paragraph on the page. You'll see the Obsidian Moon image, and at the bottom of that paragraph is a link to the mailing list to sign up. If you're signed up for the mailing list, when we reach 100 people, I'm going to send out the first chapter of the new book, Chaos Game. When we reach 250, I will give somebody on the mailing list a digital copy of Deadly Creatures, the first Fog book. When we get to 500, I will get an address and send somebody a physical copy of Deadly Creatures signed. When we get to 1,000, everybody on the mailing list will get Deadly Creatures digitally. So that's what's going on. Please sign up. Tell your friends about it. I want to grow this list as much as I can because I'm hoping that if I can finish up the book in the next 2 months, that I will be doing a Kickstarter very soon to try to fund it and get it going. So I will tell you, I am a third of the way done with the book. Act 1 is complete. The big moment was done. It is off with Salome, and I will be starting on Act 2 on Tuesday. So I know Ed finally got his hands on the original Lucius Fogg books. I look forward to him getting a chance to read them. I'm not going to question him every week saying if he's read them yet. At least I don't think I'm going to. You never know, I might. I'm kind of weird that way. But all right. So let's talk about two things. Let's talk about Peacemaker. How many of you have seen the new Peacemaker series? Only one episode's out so far. I have interesting thoughts. I'm going to try to stay away from spoilers on it. But there's one specific spoiler I'm going to talk about because it's kind of fascinating. But the first thing I want to talk about is Ed says he'll be starting soon. Very cool. So the interesting thing about the Peacemaker series, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think James Gunn needs to do two versions of this series. I think he needs a clean version that parents can show their kids. Because in the premiere episode, you have Peacemaker who showed up in Superman. And if you've seen any of the trailers or anything else, you know that Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl show up in the series. So there's a good chance these kids are going to want to see this. But it's more than that. There's a video game I'm playing online called DC Worlds Collide. And starting next week, you will be able to get Peacemaker, Vigilante, and Judo Master as playable characters. Now, if anybody under the age of 18 is playing this game, and it's a perfectly fine game to play, then they're going to want to see the TV show. And there is a moment that involves extreme drug use, extreme nudity, full frontal, and a lot of cursing. Now, again, I have no problem with it. I wasn't offended. But it was when I started thinking about, you're putting this character from this show into a video game on a mobile device. Kids are going to try to watch this. And they might do it without their parents' permission, in which case the parents might come walking in and see stoned and high Peacemaker in the middle of a full-on orgy. And that may not go over well. Just saying. So it feels like there ought to be kind of a tamped down version, Mr. Nope says, it was a little hard to get through the first episode of season 2 for the language, and I'm a sailor in real life. Mr. Nope, I'm a photographer. I have shot many, many things. I have been on the set of pornos. I went, when I was working for Bleeding Cool, I was sent to the adult film parody of Supergirl that they filmed to cover it for Bleeding Cool, and witnessed an orgy scene. And even then, I didn't see as much as we saw on the show. So yeah, again, not offended, had no problem watching it, but I think you're asking for trouble. Just saying. And don't get me wrong, I play DC Worlds Collide. I'm looking forward to getting Peacemaker and Vigilante and Judo Master, just like I got Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Superman, and Crypto. So it says, yes, I will vouch for Mr. Nope's Sailor Talk, and I have some dance photos. And those are pretty tame. I've done some shoots for other people that are a little wilder. So didn't put those in the book, so. All right, but let me switch to something else. If you've watched the trailer or you've watched the episode, you know that we're dealing with an alternate reality. And there's a couple characters we meet in the alternate reality that are alive, that are not alive in our reality. One of which is a superhero that their Peacemaker teams up with. Well, it came out today what superhero he's going to be. And I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy. I know the DC universe pretty damn well. So when they pull out a character I've never heard of, and this is a show that literally has White Rabbit walking out of a building in the first episode, and I went, oh, wow, White Rabbit. This pretty obscure. All right, so the character that's being worked into the show is called Captain Triumph. Now, who's playing Captain Triumph? I'll let you guys find that out. But let me tell you, Captain Triumph first appeared in Crack Comics in 1927. Now, there's a book that they couldn't even put out nowadays. You couldn't call it Crack Comics. Anyway, so 1943, it was created by Alfred Androila. And this character, again, none of this has to do with what we're going to see in the show. But in the comics, there's a pair of twin brothers, Michael and Lance Gallant. Gallant, great name. Very 1940s. And they have this mystical bond, but Michael dies, and his spirit merges with Lance. And when the spirits merge, they grant him the power of flight, invisibility, invulnerability, and the like. Now, through company sales, DC ended up owning this character. And they've had him around for years. He's been mainly just obscure. He popped up in the pages of Animal Man because, of course, Grant Morrison figured out that he existed. He showed up in the Titans and Harley Quinn. But overall, he's a super minor character. Now, nothing to do with what we're going to see in the series. Okay? In the series, he's a different origin story. They're just borrowing the name. But I'm pretty impressed when they're able to pull out a character that I got to go, wait, what? And I don't mean like a super rare, like Bibbo, the guy that Superman, the buddy that owns a bar and works on the docks. I'm talking about an actual named character. So. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Let's see. Mr. Nope says, I thought I was watching a more raunchy Game of Thrones episode. Yeah. Yeah, they kind of out Game of Thrones, didn't they? And so it also bugged me a little with Fillion was bragging about saying the F-bomb more than ever before in the upcoming Lantern stuff. Kids, yeah. But we also need to take a moment and realize, are kids really watching this stuff or reading comics anymore? We want them to be. In a lot of ways, we try to make it available for them. But are we? Are any kids actually watching? They watch TikTok. They watch YouTube. They go through these ADHD videos that are just pop, 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 pop. How many kids are actually reading comic books? Braden, Lisa's son, who watches a lot of these movies with me, he comes over and we do movie night and watch whatever Marvel or DC movie he hasn't seen. He's huge into King Kong, or not King Kong, Godzilla and Jurassic Park, stuff like that. He collects some of the toys from Jurassic Park 3. I don't think he's ever read a comic. He's 20 years old. He's never read a comic. 19, 20. Up there. And that's with me as in his life. I used to get them comics. I'd go to a convention. I'd be, oh, look, there's a new Godzilla comic. Oh, look. And I give them to them. And I don't even know if he remembers me doing that. Because comics weren't their thing. So, we want to say, oh, well, yeah, you got to protect it for the kids. But are the kids even watching anymore? Yeah, we need them to be. But are they? Or are they more likely to watch these things when they get a little older because they're not geared for kids? Are we more likely to get them at 25 and 30 when they have a little more disposable income and a little more choice in what they watch than we're going to get them now when it's all just flashing lights and quick movies? Maybe playing towards an older audience is the way to get the younger audience back. When I was a kid, I didn't read DC comics. I read Marvel comics. Because in the 70s, Marvel was writing for teenagers and college kids, and DC was writing for children. Superman Family. That wasn't my gig. That wasn't what I liked. Because that was all, gee, golly, and shucks, where Peter Parker's problems were more in line with mine. So maybe it's the right idea. I don't know. We'll have to see. It says, when you look at Halloween costumes, 90% of the superheroes from the movies makes me sad. Kids might start watching the adult TV stuff. Yeah. So I would love for them to do 2 versions. But I don't know. I don't know if they will, and I don't know if it'll be necessary. Yeah, Free Comic Book Day is great, but are the kids coming in and wanting the comics, or are the parents coming in and bringing the kids? Pogs killed us, man. I sound like Scorsese now, don't I? But Pogs took them away. Video games kept them. And now we went down from like 6,000 stores in the country to 2,500, maybe. It's a sad, sad world. So. All right, let's move on from the downer talk. But yeah, Captain Triumph. Rare comic book character. It says, I'm proud to say I got my daughter hooked on comics when she was 4. Now she's drawing, writing, and publishing her own. That is awesome, man. I love that. How old is she now, Ed? Because that is great. I love that. You know, Braden wants to make movies, so I kind of feel like I may have pushed him in that direction too. She'll be 21 in a couple of weeks, and she's publishing her own comics. Nice. Yeah. When she's got one coming out, let me know. We can get her on here and let her hype it. You know, my 13 people she can sell to. All right. Let's talk about something else. This struck me yesterday. Lisa and I have been on a weird viewing streak lately. She got hooked on a series called Port Protection, Alaska, about a bunch of people living in very, very rural area of Alaska where you have to cut down trees and build your own buildings and fish your own fish and hunt bears. And, you know, there's no general store. There's no, you know, mail comes by airplane every couple of weeks. You know, it's just a tough place to live. And we watched a bunch of seasons of it, and it's coming to the end. I think the most recent season is going to be the last. We've got like 1 or 2 episodes to go, and we got hooked on it. You know, there's a couple people on the show we really got to like, and they actually passed away because there's a lot of older people up there. So, but one of the things they do a lot of fishing, and Lisa had said, because there's some actual fishing boats there, she goes, it would be neat to see what a professional fishing boat looked like. I went, what? She goes, you know, like a crab fishing boat. I wonder if there's any shows like that where they, you know, they kind of follow a crab fishing boat. I went, you're kidding, right? So do you ever heard of Deadliest Catch? Currently on season 21. So we went back, and we didn't start at the very beginning, because the first place I found it was on Disney Plus, and Disney Plus had seasons 4, 5, and 21. So like, all right. So we watched season 4 together, and we got all kind of into the show. And I watched it back then. You know, Mike Rowe's the narrator, the Cornelia Marie, the Wizard, the Time Bandit, the Northwestern. So we watched all of season 4 and season 5, and I remembered season 6 and how just heart-wrenching it is. And if you don't know why, I'm not going to say. If you do know why, you know why. And we got through season 6, and it was just emotionally wreck. I mean, it is. It's just, you come out of it, and you're like, I forgot this is a real show. That these are real people, you know? So, and we started in on season 7, and after about 4 episodes of season 7, I'm like, I'm done. I need a break. This got way too real. I need a break. We need something else. So we're looking at some of the stuff, and it's like, all right, so we watched the first episode of Peacemaker. We watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the newest episode. We're updating on that. We got the Sandman to catch up on, but, you know, we got some new stuff coming up soon. But what we're going to do, well, we had watched the first 2 seasons of Picard, and we hadn't started season 3 yet. Now, I, like a lot of people have heard, season 3 is supposed to be the best, and that Terry Matalas is the showrunner, and Terry is going to be the showrunner for the upcoming Vision series. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I get an idea of what type of stuff he might do. So it would be interesting now. So I watched it the last couple days, 6 episodes so far, 4 to go. And it is really good. The 3rd episode is definitely the best. It really gets into, it feels like Next Generation, but at the same time, it feels like somebody's coming along and going, we left some loose ends. Let's tie them up. Let's connect some dots. Let's do this, that, and the other. And you can tell that Terry Matalas loved Next Generation. He's dug deep into the history. He's tapping into moments that as soon as I see him, I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. Oh my God, I remember that. And I was addicted to Next Generation when it came out. Absolutely just addicted. That was my jam. So it was neat watching it. But I started looking at Matalas, and I started looking at some of his history. And I wrote this up this morning. I'm going to read it to you about what I think Terry Matalas brings to the Marvel Universe with Vision Quest coming up. So, when Marvel Studios tapped Terry Matalas to helm Vision Quest, this is the upcoming Disney Plus series centered on the Synthoid Avenger. It wasn't just a smart hire, it was a signal that Marvel is ready to embrace deeper storytelling, character introspective inspection, and genre-bending ambition. Matalas is best known for, of course, revitalizing Star Trek Picard and its critically acclaimed 3rd season. And he brings a unique blend of emotional intelligence, sci-fi pedigree, and a serialized storytelling expertise that makes him kind of the ideal architect for the Vision's next chapter. Now, Vision's arc has always been about his identity. He is created by Ultron, powered by the Mind Stone, and shaped by love and loss. Now, Vision is a being caught between man and machine. After WandaVision, though, the original Vision's gone. And the white Vision, kind of a blank slate version, was restored with the memories, but not the emotional context. Now, he was left to wander. We see him fly off after the showdown with the Hex version of Vision to kind of find his own purpose, to see what he's doing. And this kind of existential journey echoes the themes that Matalas explored in Picard, where legacy and memory and humanity were all central. In fact, Matalas has openly stated that Vision's arc in Vision Quest, still a working title, I think, it will mirror Spock's journey in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, where the Vulcan kind of grapples with his own resurrection and fragmented identity. Now, before Picard, Matalas created and ran 12 Monkeys, a time-traveling series praised for its intricate plotting and emotional depth, of course based off of the movie, but he adapted it for television. He's a showrunner who understands how to balance high-concept science fiction with grounded character drama, and that's exactly what the Vision needs. A story that can explore artificial intelligence, memory, and morality without losing sight of the heart. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige reportedly sought out Matalas after watching season 3 of Picard, calling it incredible and wanting to find the person responsible. Now, this kind of endorsement speaks volumes, especially in an era where Marvel is kind of scaling back its Disney Plus stuff and focusing more on quality over quantity. Matalas isn't just continuing Vision's story, he's expanding it. Vision Quest will introduce new characters like Paladin, a character that I loved growing up when I met him in Daredevil. And he's going to be played by a Picard alum, Todd Stashwick, Also, there's going to be a reimagined version of Friday, the AI program, who's going to be played by Orla Brady, also from Picard. James Spader is going to return as Ultron, but this is promising kind of a unique role that could redefine the character's legacy. This also suggests that this is going to be more of a layered narrative that blends Marvel's lore and some fresh sci-fi ideas. Matalas is bringing his Star Trek crew with him as well. So this production team he's already well versed with is mainly coming over, all these Star Trek veterans. So he's got a shorthand with these people. So that's going to make it much easier to tell stories like this. Now, in the past, Marvel's Disney Plus shows, they always felt kind of like extended films. You know, they weren't sequential storytelling. But that's what Matalas does. And it's what they did with Daredevil Born Again as well. So I like seeing that this is shifting in that direction. In the same way that DC is doing with Peacemaker and Penguin, is they are making actual television shows now. And Matalas strives in this format. He has an ability to weave long-term character development into that episodic intrigue, and it makes him a good fit for the show. And it's one of the ones I'm really looking forward to. And even though it hasn't been like officially announced, I think we're going to get that at D23. I think because there's been enough talk to the point where there was a convention that Matalas and Todd Stashwick were there, and they're talking about his role in the upcoming Vision Quest series. So I think it's pretty straightforward. Ed says, did you watch Star Trek Lower Deck? I really liked that and was bummed they canceled it. I did. It's not my kind of show. I am not someone that likes stuff like Rick and Morty or Solar Opposites, because they can get absurd. They can do these, and I like my shows to have a logical narrative, something that makes sense. And I saw Lower Deck being in that same vein, where Lisa would watch it, and she'd watch it with me in the room, and I'd ignore it, watch it. So I've seen quite a few of them, but yeah, I'm not a fan of Lower Deck. I did enjoy the Next Generation, the Strange New Worlds episode, where two of the characters from Lower Decks end up on the show. I thought that was pretty damn funny. Him swinging his leg over into a chair going, Riker, was too damn funny, especially since Jonathan Frakes is the one that directed that episode. And from what I understand, he didn't say he was going to do that. He just did it. So, but yeah. So, yeah, I see that Lower Decks, I see the appeal of Lower Decks. It's just not for me. So, okay. So those were the two main things I wanted to talk about, was whether or not Peacemaker needed a PG-13 version, and if my thoughts on Terry Matalas coming in to do Vision. And that's a series that I've been waiting a long time for, because I really want to see how they finish that up. I mean, yes, we got Agatha, so we got to finish that character arc. Wanda went into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I have a feeling we're not done with her yet, but I got to see what happens to the Vision. So I'm looking forward to that. So, okay, well, I was curious, was both like Vox Machina, fair enough. Yeah, no, I like Vox Machina, but again, there's a certain amount of reality I need. There's suspension of disbelief to a certain point. And Lower Decks to me was a little too Rick and Morty, where Rick and Morty just creates whatever they need to for that episode and then throw it out. They never reference it again, or they might. They think, yeah, we'll go back to that, or they might not. So yeah, that's not really my thing. I got to remember to stay closer to the microphone. I watched one of the other videos and saw that my voice fades out when I sit back, but my back likes it back there. So maybe I'll get myself a lapel mic in the future. Anyway, so those are the main things I wanted to talk about. We talked about Obsidian Moon. So anything you guys have questions about, anything you want me to address before Ed says, any thoughts on the end credit scene from Thunderbolts not being connected to the FF movie? I was surprised they didn't like that. They didn't link that in the FF movie. Well, the final scene wasn't directed by Matt Shackman. It was directed by the Russo brothers. So that Thunderbolts, the end credit scene in Thunderbolts will tie into Avengers Doomsday, not necessarily Fantastic Four. So, I don't know. Maybe we're going to get more than one set of Fantastic Four. I don't know. I look forward to the end of the multiverse. And again, to get back to linear storytelling. Makes more sense. I like it better. Not that I've hated the multiverse stuff, but I've had enough of it now. And I want to get back to just doing good stories, and good stories about good characters. So, all right. Any other questions, comments? Remember to sign up for the mailing list. Information's right there. Go to danwickline.com. Please hit the like and thumbs up buttons. As most of you have, I appreciate that greatly. And were you all surprised that Reed Richards doesn't seem to stretch very far? He looked like he was going to snap when Galactus stretched him. I haven't seen Fantastic Four yet. But it doesn't surprise me that he's limited in his stretching. I don't think he's ever been the most stretchy of the stretchy heroes. I always thought Plastic Man was the more extreme one. Elongated Man and Reed Richards seem to have their limitations. So we'll have to see what they do with it. They've never really done a lot with the stretching in these movies. They've always been somewhat limited. So hopefully the Russo brothers will go, oh, we know what we want to do with it, and really push it to its limit. So, okay. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. A few minutes short, but it's good. I hope you all have a great week. I will be back next week. Again, if you have anything you want to talk about, feel free to drop me a line on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else and tell me the topic you want to talk about. If you see something that you think I should be talking about, let me know. And I will get back with you guys all next week. Have a terrific week. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. All right.